Good evening. Welcome. I have summoned you here this evening to talk about a topic of great importance. What the hell is going on with this hobby? Hi. I am completely knackered and I'm very grateful to be here right now because I've had an extremely emotional week in various ways, which has let me sit alone in many a room with my own thoughts, and my thoughts have kept turning onto LARP because it's the only thing I have in my life right now. Hi, if you're going to be joining me for the evening, don't forget to say hi in the chat so that we can have a lovely conversation. If you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat as well. I do try and respond to many of them. Hello. And hopefully we're going to have a good evening. So, hi. Oh, people are appearing. I love how there's 3 of you, but only says 2 people are watching. So one of you is a ghost, which makes me very excited. As you can see from the topic of this, we are going to be talking about the future of LARP this evening because, like I said, that's what's been on my mind for quite a while now. You can indeed say howdy, Michaela. How are you? Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about the future of LARP, and it mainly got spawned in my head by something that happened literally yesterday, but what I knew was coming for a while, which is the closing down of Sonia's Adventures. If none of you are aware, which I believe is completely untrue because everybody I know should know about Sonia's Adventures. Sonia is a German LARPer, and for the last 7 years, she's ran a YouTube channel where she has been talking about all of the LARPs that she goes to, lots of different LARPers, and has generally been a really inspiring piece of the community, and somebody I have looked up to for quite a while. And back in December, she announced that her channel will be closing down at the end of January. And she stuck to that, despite the fact that one of her videos went viral and she gained 11,000 new subscribers, I think, in the last month or something like that. It was really, really excessive and really impressive. But she and her team stuck to their guns, and they put up their last video yesterday. If you've not watched it, do go, because it is an absolutely charming video. I'm even in it for like 2 seconds because I sent her a little video saying thank you for everything she and her team had done. And it kind of, as I was waiting for her to finish, I kept sort of going, what's LARP going to be like without her? Because whenever I've needed inspiration for LARP, it'd be character design, costumes, or even just like how to improve myself as a LARPer in general, Sonia's where I went. I've always gone to Sonia because she knows what she's talking about. She's incredibly relatable. And I'm struggling to picture LARP without her. And because I'm a typical melancholy kind of person, that meant me set down. We'll try that sentence again. That meant that I kind of ended up sitting down and going, well, what's LARP going to be like in general in the future? Because I think LARP has changed an awful lot just in the last 2 to 3 years. And it's changed incredibly rapidly. I'm not saying that LARP has been the same forever. I've not been LARPing as long as some people. I've only been LARPing for the last decade. I know people who've been LARPing for over 30 years. But I feel like, for me, there was this massive shift over the last few years. And we all know where that started. That started with the pandemic and the lockdowns. And it started there because we suddenly couldn't LARP. And so we suddenly had to look for other outlets to get our fantasy kick out of. And we started getting more creative than we had been before. We saw a massive uptake in tabletop roleplay, whether that be Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, pretty much anything that anybody could get hold of. And people would obviously play it, not only with people they were living with, but also online. And that led to online LARPs, which always seems almost a bit weird to sort of say, because how can it be online if it's live action role play? But there were some amazing ones out there. Sorry, my throat is still terrible. I'm on my third cold in 3 months. It's terrible. There were some really, really cool and interesting live action role play events that were being held entirely online. And people, a lot of them were sci-fi based, I noticed, because that seemed the easiest way to kind of explain why people were all doing it over like camera or Zoom, because essentially everybody was locked away on their own planet or on their own spaceship. They were all in costume and chatting and LARPing over camera. And that was really, really interesting to me, because it's not a way I've ever really seen play before. Ironically, I never got around to actually doing that myself, because the lockdowns in general were completely insane. Hi! So I never actually got to LARP online myself, but I did watch other people doing it. Not literally, I wasn't like watching their Zoom chats, but it's like a lot of my friends were doing it and they would talk about it on Facebook. And it was really, really interesting to see them sort of keep their LARP spirit alive. Hello! More people joining the chat. I love seeing people. And once we came out of the lockdowns and LARP was able to resume, we all started kind of approaching it in a bit of a different way, but not in that we didn't really want, not in like, we were playing differently, but I think a lot of people's outlooks and perspective on how LARP was and what LARP should be had fundamentally changed, because people kept up with the tabletop stuff that they were doing, but more people were coming into the LARP space. And it feels like, to me especially, LARP went mainstream immediately after the pandemic. And don't get me wrong, we've always been around in like media in general. Have you ever seen like, role models, or is it Jennifer's Body that got LARPers in as well? I think it's Jennifer's Body. Don't know, I haven't seen it because I'm terrified of Megan Fox in that film. You know what happens when you lose your train of thought? Yeah, so it felt like kind of LARP almost went mainstream, and it started to be reflected in the LARP in sort of, LARP in general, and the amount of times you kind of saw it. I think I'm not explaining myself well. So, for example, Empire LARP in the UK, most people have heard of it. It's the biggest LARP in the UK. And last year it had more attendees than ever before at every single event. It holds 4 main events throughout the year. And the first event was the biggest event they ever had. And then the second event was the biggest event they ever had. Then the third event was the biggest event they ever had. And then the fourth event was the biggest event they had ever had. They built those numbers up every single time. And that was new to me. That was kind of new for a thing in my head, because a lot of people, when people want to know where they start LARPing, the Empire players are incredible and will immediately leap on them and go to Empire. So for the numbers to have been building up that much, there must have been a lot of people starting to think about, well, I would like to go LARPing. And I don't blame them, because I love going LARPing, as I'm sure you all do too. I've had an interesting week, Matt, but we'll go into that later. And it's just been a weird sort of train of thought going on in my head, and I'm very acutely aware that I'm not making a lot of sense and I'm just kind of rambling. But long story short, if LARP is going mainstream and we're getting more and more people into this hobby, which, as you guys will all know, is one of the great desires that I have, is seeing more and more people getting into this hobby. How is that going to affect LARP going forward? Because I think we're going to start seeing a massive shift from hobby style LARP to professional LARP, which, I'll be honest, I don't know how the community is going to respond. I expect a lot of people are going to hate it, but we're already kind of seeing that happen. Because LARP is essentially becoming bigger, and because there's more people and more customers, a higher standard of professionalism is generally expected. And another thing that I felt really sort of kicked this off was the introduction of Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser at Star Wars Galaxy Edge. If you don't know what Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser is, it is essentially a weekend-long experience where you go and stay in essentially a in-universe starship in the Star Wars universe, and you spend your weekend playing through a custom Star Wars story while you're on that Star Cruiser. It's a LARP. There's no other sort of, explanation for what it actually is. It's a LARP. And it was quite interesting watching it develop because of all the comments online people would make about it. Because obviously, it's not an actual Star Cruiser. It's a hotel. It's a big, ugly hotel because it doesn't need to look pretty because no one's looking at the outside of it. It's a big, ugly, grey hotel. And inside, they have done it up to the nines to make it look like a ship in the Star Wars universe. And they've hired a lot of actors and a lot of performers. And essentially, they are leading you through this Star Wars story. And a lot of people, as this was going on, were like, this is the weirdest thing ever. Why are they building this ugly grey hotel? And how are we going to go through the Star Wars story? And this concept